Hello and welcome to this week's episode. We are back with a spooky special, and this week we will be reading some ghost stories. So, disclaimer, we have no idea what these ghost stories include. We do not know whether there should be a trigger warning in place. We are blind reacting. And now I'm going to hand you over to the wonderful Jessica, and she will give you the first spooky story.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's Ghost Story special. The first story that I'll be reading today is from r/ghost stories, and the first one is titled The Figure on the Porch. It says, I've never been into the paranormal. I don't think of myself as someone easily spooked, and I've never had any interest in ghost stories. That's why what happened to me at my grandparents' house last year still bothers me. I can't explain it, and it doesn't fit into how I normally think. Last summer, I stayed at their house for a couple of weeks to help out with some yard work and just to spend some time with them. They live in a very small rural town and their house is old. I don't know the exact history of it, but it's been in the family for a long time. It's one of those houses that creaks at night, and while I was there, it always felt kind of musty and quiet. I didn't think much of it. One night around 2 or 3 a.m., the witching hour, I woke up unexpectedly. I wasn't startled awake or anything. I just opened my eyes, fully awake for no apparent reason. I figured I was just restless, so I laid there trying to get back to sleep. I was in the guest room and my grandparents were sleeping in their room down the hall. The house was completely silent. Then I heard what sounded like footsteps outside the window on the front porch. It wasn't loud or frantic, but slow, steady steps, like someone pacing back and forth. The house is on a quiet street, and I remember thinking it was weird that someone would be walking around at that time of night. I got up and looked out the window, but no one was there. The porch was empty, lit by the street lamp, but the footsteps didn't stop. I stood there for a few seconds just listening. The sound seemed like it was right there, but I couldn't see a thing. It was unnerving, but I convinced myself it had to be something like the house settling or an animal outside. Eventually, the footsteps stopped and I went back to bed. The next morning, I casually mentioned to my grandmother that I heard someone outside, walking on the porch at night. I didn't expect her to take it seriously, but she paused and looked at me for a second before saying, You probably heard her. I asked her what she meant, and she explained that over the years, several people have mentioned hearing footsteps on the porch at night. Sometimes they even see a figure standing at the far end, but no one can ever make out any details. She said it's been happening for as long as she can remember, and her only explanation is that it's the spirit of someone who used to live in the house before them. She said it casually like it wasn't a big deal, which threw me off. I've never seen my grandmother as a superstitious type, but she genuinely believed there was something strange about those footsteps. She told me not to worry, that whoever it was didn't seem harmful, just a presence that made itself known once in a while. I didn't hear the footsteps again during the rest of my stay, but the experience has stuck with me. I still don't know what to make of it. I'm not saying I believe in ghosts, but it was real enough that I haven't been able to explain it away.
I think it's really creepy whenever someone's like, "Oh yeah."
Absolutely validating the ghost. I mean, like, I've had an experience where I've heard footsteps, waited for the person to like cross the reflection and no one ever came. It shook me to my core. Like I almost started crying. I shouted my mum. I was like, Mom, come here quick. But yeah, that freaked me out. One of the comments says, definitely spooky, but honestly seems kind of peaceful. Maybe they really loved hanging out on the porch in life and wanted to keep hanging out there.
I think if I was an old lady and I like had a porch, I would just sit
I'd be hanging around on the porch. Absolutely.
on my swing in the porch, drinking my cup of tea, just watching the world go by.
Literally, that'd be one of my favorite pastimes.
And you said about the witching hour as well. Do you know what? Every time I wake up in the night, it's always at like 3 o'clock, and I always look at the time and I'm like, for fuck's sake.
You don't have any weird, creepy happenings in your house, though, really, do you?
No, no, I've just had weird, creepy happenings like throughout my life.
Mhm.
It tends to just it follows me, you know.
Yeah.
Like it's always been like the shadow people.
That's why I can't I don't like being in the dark. If I'm like awake, I need the light to be on in some way, shape, or form
Yeah.
because I do feel like shadows. So like if I'm walking down the hallway, I'm like click, 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 all the lights on as I'm walking down.
Okay, so the next story is titled "Should I Be Scared for My Son?" So last night I was playing my game with my headset on, maybe 20 feet away from me. My son is asleep on the bed. I heard him laughing, not just laughing, but belly laughing pretty hard. I got up and shined my flashlight on him just to see him laughing, possibly dreaming. But what I seen was his blanket over his head and body with what looked like something under it with him. I figured at first he may be playing with toys, so I pulled the blanket from over him and he instantly stopped laughing and his arms dropped to his side. He was 1,000% hugging something last night, and the second I pulled the blanket, it disappeared. I told my wife, and she said he could have been hugging a loved one or something good. But tonight, me and my wife were woken up to him screaming and crying no, with the blanket fully over his head and body again. We pulled the blanket from under him. Once again, he stopped completely and stayed fully asleep. Both times I've had goosebumps, and even now typing this, I do. I'm not sure what to do.
Ooh, oh my God. Like, I
Save
see.
that house to start with. Like,
I I see and hear so many stories like on TikTok and because of the content that I consume. And I swear there was another story yesterday of a woman who every time she woke up to like check on a baby to feed her baby, and this was like a newborn, you know, that need feeding like every 2 to 3 hours type of deal. And every time she went over to him in the cot or like to the bassinet, the cover was over his face. And she was super confused because she'd swaddled him. So she's like, how do the covers end up over his face? It just gives me the creepy vibes, man. Just creepy vibes.
that
I love
that
these stories, but they creep me out.
that one wasn't nice to read, to be honest. Like,
No, that terrifying, terrifying. Because another thing about being the adult is you're supposed to be like the protector, the
yeah,
brave one.
yeah.
But yeah, that I just yeah, scared of ghosts. The next story is called Mimic, a true story. A guy named Sam lived in the city, rented a two-bedroom apartment because he hated to be alone. He moved in a lady and her young son. One afternoon, she told Sam she had experienced something and she was very afraid. One night, while walking to the bathroom, she saw a tall, naked man walk down the hallway and turn into the kitchen. Sam asked, "Where did the tall man start?" She said it looked like he was coming out of his room. She was terrified and ran into the bathroom. When she exited the bathroom, she didn't see the tall man. Neither Sam or the woman had anyone over. Sam said he felt like he was being watched, but dismissed it as childish. The lady stayed at his apartment for a few months and nothing else happened to her. She worked second shift and he worked days. Sam would be asleep when she came home. Sam would wake up to her sitting on the floor in his room. She would just walk away. He figured it made her feel safe, so he didn't complain. He kind of enjoyed it himself. This carried on for a few months, and the lease was up, and it was time to move. The woman had rented a place with her new boyfriend. Sam thanked the lady for helping him pay rent and all that good stuff. He also thanked her for the late night talks and said he was going to miss them. She was confused and didn't know what he was talking about.
I knew exactly where that was going as soon as you started that sentence. Disgusting. Like,
She said she usually goes to her bedroom. Why would I be in yours? She said. Sam had no clue why she would be in denial. Sometime later, he thought about the tall, skinny man, wondered if that is who he had been talking to. Somehow he looked at her. That's nuts. Or maybe Sam lost his mind. A trickster ghost, a demon, maybe. Either way, Sam never slept the same again. I'm Sam, by the way. I just changed my name. And the first comment is, that's hella scary.
mhm.
And then OP responds, "Now I know what a mimic is. It sure is. I just talked away. I remember it laughing sometimes. Mimics are truly terrifying. You never know if you're actually talking to someone you know and love. Mimics petrify me. There is, if you go to TikTok and just like hashtag mimic, there is so many creepy ass stories of people like, say, like the husband's out of the house, but the wife will hear him like visibly call her name and it sounds like him. And oh, it's just, yeah, don't fall for the mimic, guys. Don't fall for the mimic.
So the next one is titled My Haunted Town. I live in Indiana. The state is riddled with curses and folklore that no one talks about. Not because they don't believe, but because we are used to it and we don't want others to live with it. The best example I have is my hometown, Kokomo. Kokomo falls between a small town and a medium city. We aren't huge, nor are we small, but corn and soybean fields are everywhere, as are the Native American curses we live with, including the one that I'm about to tell you. Back when the Miami tribe of Native Americans called this land home, there was a girl, her name lost to time and her people forbidden from speaking it. She was a bright girl with deep connections to the spirits. Even as the pale invaders moved closer to her home, she was bright and bubbly. Some say she was destined to be the next spiritual leader of her people. Sad to say that it wasn't meant to be. On a cold, full moon night in autumn, the girl vanished. Her people searched and eventually found the poor girl. She was crucified to a tree, her jaw ripped off and clear signs of being assaulted in the most vile ways. A
Whoa.
deep sadness filled her people, who disappeared only a few days later. The settlers found her village, homes on fire, and the girl's body laid on a pile of animal bones and ash with her arms spread out, her pale, dead eyes gazing up to the stars. The people disposed of her in the Wildcat Creek and settled on her people's land. This may just sound like a made-up story, but I have seen her and felt her rage. I was only 14 years old, and I was walking outside and felt a shiver run down my spine. Fear that I have never experienced before rippled through me. I was walking down a street, one side lined with houses and the other with a cornfield. Cornfields are just creepy anyway, right? I stopped walking as I saw her, walking from the yard to the street, shambling, her movements so wrong and horrifying. Watching her shuffle, disgusting noises that I can't even describe coming from her. She stopped suddenly, and the blood drained from me. I watched her head turn to look at me, and suddenly I felt it. I knew what it was. It was her fear. The fear, anger, and the horror she felt for her final moments. I felt sick and terrible, and I managed to turn and run away. I felt her behind me, as if no matter how fast I ran, the girl was only feet away from me. I ran with all my might until I got home. I slammed the door, turned on all the lights, and prayed all night. I went by with my mum later that day. The corn where I saw her heading was all dying in the line through the field, and the dog of the man that lived in the house I saw her coming from had died. I know she's out there, angry and hurt. I believe she is the cause of the curse on this land. Her figure haunts me to this day, and I can't forget her. I can't look outside at night anymore, fearing the young Miami tribe girl will be standing there, coming to get me for escaping her back then.
I mean, that there are always hard stories when it goes back a long time and something traumatic happened. And I wonder if, like, was her body disturbed? Did they say her body was disturbed when they like put her in the creek and that? Like maybe that kind
Well,
of stirred up something as well.
I think her death itself.
I mean, that was just horrifying. I was literally sat here with my mouth open, like, oh my God. I didn't like this is a blind reaction. We did not know that this story was going to be that horrifying. But wow, the fact that they could feel her fear, anger, etc., that must have been overwhelming and scary.
And like the corn dying in a line where she went, and the man's dog being dead from the house that she came from as well.
Yeah.
Maybe she's just like a Grim Reaper. Maybe that's what she is. She's the Grim Reaper. She didn't kill it. She just went to collect.
Yeah, or maybe she just because of how traumatic what happened to her, she just leaves death wherever she goes. Maybe. Wow, I'm a bit stunned at that story. To be fair. Okay, moving on. The next one is from a different Reddit thread called r/ghosts, and this is a personal encounter. The title is called "My Apartment is Haunted. What Do I Do?" I've had my apartment for about a month and a half now, but I only had started living there a week ago. It's an old but large Spanish-style house built in 1898. The home was converted into 5 units. My unit is upstairs. The layout is quite long and not an open floor plan like you see in modern houses. Each room had a door to get to another room, kind of like an old Victorian home where there are rooms for certain purposes joined by a hallway. Every night this week, there has been some strange and unexplained noise at night between the hours of 12 and 3 a.m. The first night I heard it, it sounded like someone had taken their heel and stomped twice. This continued for 15 minutes at a slightly irregular rate, like someone was trying to keep time but had bad rhythm. I was freaked out and tried shaking my boyfriend awake, but right when I spoke out loud, the noises stopped. I laid there for 30 minutes waiting for it to happen again, but it didn't start up again. It occurred at exactly 3 a.m., according to my phone. Another night, I heard some sort of motion sound. I don't know how to explain it, but maybe like a medium-sized animal moving around. It's like a cat or a dog, maybe. Again, from the same area of the apartment. But when I went to investigate, nothing was there. The day afterwards, I had fallen asleep on the couch in the living room. My boyfriend was sleeping in the bed with my dog. I didn't hear a thing, but he told me he had heard pattering of footsteps in the hallway. He thought it was our 18-pound dog. But when he propped himself up, he saw our dog laying in the corner of the room. Our dog was awake with its ears perked, looking towards the hallway. Then it happened again. Quick, light footsteps. Our dog began to growl up the hallway and then suddenly stopped. No, always believe the animals. My boyfriend told me what happened the next day. I've always been particularly fearful of ghosts. I've had some past experiences that have just terrified me. They're one of my biggest fears. We went out for coffee, mostly so all three of us could get out the house. And so I started prodding him to tell me more details. Like, did they sound like human footsteps? Where exactly did you think they were coming from? How heavy were they, etc. He reluctantly told me he thinks they were from a young boy. When asked why he thought that, he revealed that there has been some sort of activity every night since he'd been there. He moved in a month ago and on several occasions been woken up by footsteps or strange sounds. He told me one particular night he had been sleeping on the couch in the living room when he woke up to an uncomfortable feeling, one where he felt he was being watched. This occurred during a week-long heat wave where temperatures were consistently above 100 degrees Fahrenheit, and our apartment had no air conditioning, so it was unbearably hot inside. He woke up around 2 a.m. and the room was cold. He didn't see anyone, but he felt a presence in the room with him. He was terrified, but again it suddenly stopped. He thinks that it was a young boy because he felt the stature of whatever it was shorter, and the footsteps sounded like those of a young child. He hadn't told me because he didn't want to frighten me. Now, last night around midnight, we were watching TV in the living room when a nightlight in the kitchen started flickering. I watched it go in and out for about 10 minutes, and I said out loud to stop it. The light stopped flickering. When we went to bed around 1 a.m., there was a scuttling sound behind the bedroom door. My bedroom itself doesn't have a door, but it is connected to a short hallway which does have its own door. This door leads to the kitchen. My dog jumped up, ran over to the door, and started barking. When we got him to come back to the bed, the noises had stopped. I was so freaked out that I couldn't sleep. I dozed in and out, but I kept hearing noises from behind the hall door. No way. My boyfriend got up early this morning at around 6 a.m. to make a long drive, and that's when I finally slept until 9 a.m. I noticed that my bedroom closet door was open, and so was a closet in the hallway. I haven't confirmed with my boyfriend yet if it was him, but I hope it was. This is all to say I'm scared and I'm not sure what to do. I don't want to see anything, and I have this feeling of dread that I am going to turn around someday and see something I don't want to see. Nothing seems to happen during the day, but I still feel so anxious. What should I do? Should I try to capture some footage to show the landlord and break the lease? Should I get a priest in here? Should I sage it? Any advice is appreciated.
All of the above.
Like we go back again, footsteps. I think when you hear something and then don't see anything, it's just it I don't know what it does to you.
Mm.
How some people are unbothered and unscared is beyond me. But it is that part of being a believer or a non-believer. If you don't believe in them, you tend to be scared, or are you a believer that isn't scared? Like, let us know in the comments because I'm petrified. I'm like her. I kind of don't want to turn around one day and see something. But if I was hearing footsteps all the time, I'd be freaked. The top comment says, try to continue being firm with it and telling it to stop. If it really is a boy, it's probably harmless. However, malevolent entities will also present as children, according to some. And if you acknowledge and react with the fear to them, they'll tend to get worse. Do some research on the Town Historical Society or town office and see if you can find any records of a small boy dying in the house. That might provide some level of comfort if it's not a malevolent entity. Also, as I've posted before, it's scary at first, but at a certain point, you also just get used to it if it's not something malicious. So there you go.
Mm.
I can't imagine ever getting used to it, to be fair, but
I see someone pop up on social media. It's a couple. I can't remember what they're called. I don't follow them. They just pop up from the algorithm
I
sometimes.
think I know what couple you're on about. I think I've seen
The
it
ghost is like possessed a goose, like a giant goose teddy.
too. Yeah,
So funny.
that's the one. And he was like embarrassed. He was like, "No ghost of mine is gonna be taking over a goose."
Yeah, and I think they found out her name as well. Like she's an old lady, and I think her name's like Enid or something like that. Like she wrote it up.
I literally seen that couple yesterday.
Yeah.
Our algorithms are algorithming.
But she wrote her name on the fridge and fridge magnets. It's like Ethel or Enid or something like that.
Something like that. Yeah, I think it might be Ethel. But yeah, I know the exact couple. He's got dark hair, she's got blonde hair.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Great couple.
Okay, so the next story, we're back to r/ghost stories Reddit thread, and it is titled Hide and Seek. My wife and I have been renting our house for the past 2 years. Sparingly throughout our tenure, we have heard running in the attic, bangs on the ceiling of the basement, and have seen shadows following me. We
Nope.
have heard full conversations outside our bedroom window, locks on our doors be changed, and other odds and ends which have given us the spooks. I'm hearing things move upstairs as I'm typing this. Yesterday, it was seemingly intensified. When I got home from work, I came home to greet my wife and two daughters. The kids were napping, and we decided to play Fortnite to take advantage of the opportunity. When the kids woke up, all was well. We had a snack time, enjoyed our night together. As the night was coming to a close, my oldest, too, wanted to play a new game she just learned, hide and seek. She's very good at running away from us and hiding when things don't go her way, but not whilst we play hide and seek. Toddlers and hide and seek is hilarious. Uh, when it's her turn to hide, she likes to peek around the corner and watch me count and cutely lets me find her immediately. When it is her turn to seek, she is super excited and loves it. But she can never find me. She always runs to her room first and goes under her bed, one of her usual spots we find her. It may seem like something light-hearted and small, but we have no clue where she learned what hide and seek is and how to play it. She has been infatuated with playing it for the past week. Maybe she'll get better at it. Maybe I've seen too many scary movies, but it still gives me the creeps wondering where she'd learnt the game. Another weird experience happened later that night when it was time for the girls to go to bed. I was on my way back to get the oldest changed and ready for bed when my wife said, "She's by the curtains," as she had just saw her walk in and they were visible from where she was sitting. I looked and didn't see her there, but she had crawled out from behind our recliner across the room. When I brought her in to change her, my wife had a petrified look on her face. She said she was staring at me with a blank face and stared at me for 10 seconds and then went by the curtain to the corner as you were walking out.
Is that the daughter or a ghost? Or did
The daughter, apparently, the 2-year-old.
Oh my God.
So today, I went downstairs about an hour ago to our basement to fluff our laundry in the dryer and to find the 4 bottles of detergent and fabric softener, along with a couple other things we kept on top of our dryer, have all been knocked down. These items were all standing straight up on the ground, except our laundry detergent, which had been knocked over and spilled all over the ground. I was pissed because I thought our cat may have knocked it off since he likes to sit on it and look out of the window. But after discussing with my wife, she was down there last. Our cat had been in our room all night, and all the items were on the dryer. I went upstairs to show her what had happened, and 3 of the items were back on top of the dryer, and one was knocked over on the ground. We had yelled out, "Is anyone down here?" multiple times and searched the basement to no avail. We returned upstairs frightened and searched around our house a bit more. We decided whatever it was downstairs, and we were safe as long as the door was locked. We decided to head to bed, and as we were walking into our room, we heard a small girl's voice say, "Hey," coming from the kitchen. Yet our daughters were asleep. Now we are waiting to see what happens, but we'll update as time goes by. FYI, we're not high, and we do not feel paranoia, just worried for ourselves. And then there's a comment. Sounds like the start of a real life horror movie. Hope you guys are safe and keep us posted. And they've posted an update in the response. My wife has still been hearing noises. This morning she heard something like the news in the living room, but I was at work and the TVs were off. Also, our daughter's Frozen movie one started singing Let It Go on its own. Going to ride it out the rest of the night here. May go up in the attic tonight and search up there too. We'll keep you posted.
I mean, what are you going to search in the attic for? To see if there's a child living up there? I would avoiding all dark places. But that is creepy. All the hairs on my arms are standing on edge because oh. So I reckon the ghost taught the 2-year-old how to play hide and seek.
Yeah, that was just a really creepy story. I find it always extra creepy when the kids are involved because you know that they're so much more open to things.
Literally, I was gonna say never ignore the children and never ignore the animals because they are more perceptive than we are. But that whole story is just a nope from me.
Completely off topic, but I heard that apparently cats view you as like just a big cat. They don't perceive that you're like different. And that's why some of them will like just bring you stuff all the time, like mice and birds and things, because they just think you're a really big, dumb, stupid cat that can't look after themselves.
I mean, accurate. How, what was that fact that I told you the other day? How like we share something like is it 92% or 96% of our DNA with a cat?
Something like that, yeah.
It was something crazy that absolutely blew my mind. But yeah, Google the percentage just to fact check, but it's a quite high percentage. Okay, so I think this is my last story now. This is from r/ghosts, and the title is I am usually a skeptic, but my sister freaked me out with this one. A little context before the actual alleged ghost encounter. I was very close to my grandmother. We spent many days together, especially in her later years. I went abroad for 6 months and she died the week before I was scheduled to return home. That's really sad. Okay, now, on to what happened. This is not my encounter, but my sister and her husband swear this happened. Upon returning to the country, I spent my first night back in my late grandmother's house. I got in around 2 a.m. and the airport was closer to her place than mine. My sister, her husband, and her baby were in town for the funeral, staying at her place as well. The wake and the funeral had already taken place, but the burial was held off so I could attend. I had been travelling for over 24 hours, so once I got there, I immediately went upstairs and crashed. I slept well into the afternoon. The upstairs of my grandmother's house has two bedrooms on either side of the staircase, and one more straight ahead down the hall. My sister and her family were staying in the room to the left of the stairs. I was staying to the room straight down the hall. When I got up, my brother-in-law commented that I was up early. I asked him what he meant because I had not been out of my bedroom since I got back. He said he heard somebody downstairs moving things around in the kitchen. My sister was in bed with him, so he assumed it was me. I brushed it off and didn't think much of it. The house is old and creaky. But then my sister chimed in. She said something weird also happened to her this morning, and whatever was downstairs could be a ghost. I asked her what she meant by that, as I didn't think she believed in ghosts either. She said when she woke up early in the morning to feed the baby, she also heard a noise, like somebody walking, but it was out in the hallway. She also thought it was me, so she went out to go greet me since we hadn't seen each other in a while. But instead, she saw a shadowy light. Her words, I don't even know what that means, in brackets, moving down the hallway and into the room where I was sleeping. The door was closed, so I guess it just disappeared when it reached the door. I'd have to ask her again. I got a little emotional when she said it was probably our grandmother saying goodbye to you. My last earthly encounter with my grandmother was not a positive one. I was home from overseas for the holidays and visited her in hospital, and it was very rough. It is not the last memory I want to have of my grandmother, so even if my sister was hallucinating or spinning yarns, even if my brother-in-law was here in the house shift, I'm going to believe it for my own sanity. She came back to say goodbye to me. After the burial, I returned to my place, but my sister and her husband stayed at the house for a few more days. They say nothing else happened, no more noises, no more shadowy lights. The house was sold pretty quickly. I unfortunately never got to go back. So I think it was definitely grandma, your nan. I think she was definitely like doing a last quick shufty in the kitchen, making sure everything's as it should be. But yeah, for husband and wife to hear it and assume that it was you, and then the light going into like his room. It's a kind of nice story, but kind of sad at the same time since you never got to really say goodbye. There's not many comments on this, just two comments. It says, not sure if you're even open to this, but you could always tell her now that you hope she's at peace and express your feelings. I believe she will be aware. At the least, it may give you some closure. And then someone shares, after my father passed, he came to me in a dream. He always wore a V-neck t-shirt and these really weird striped pants. In my dream, I saw him like that. We were holding each other by the forearms. I know, sounds very odd. He said, I am okay, I am here, and I love you. I know it was my dad because of the feeling I had being in his presence. Our family members can visit us if they felt they needed to say goodbye. I would not call her a ghost, but her life force that came to say goodbye, and when she had, she left.
I like that one.
Yeah, I believe that too. I believe that too. I mean, I had an experience after my dad passed away, very, very soon after my dad passed away. And I shared my bedroom at the time with my younger sisters. And I'm sure my younger brother used to sleep in there with us as well. But sometimes I'm like, did it really happen? Or was I just dreaming? But I could have swore I woke up, seeing my dad's like looking round the doorway as if checking on all of us. And like I rubbed my eyes to look again and he was gone. It's very, very, very similar to that. And still to this day, I do wonder, like, did that really happen? Did he come to say goodbye, or was I just imagining it? Was it a dream? So there you go. That's what I'd like to think. I'd like to think he came to say goodbye. I'd like to think that.
I had similar with our cat when she died. I would be like sat on the sofa and I would all of a sudden see her like walk across the door and be like, what just happened?
Yeah. My mum's convinced that there's a cat hanging around this house, and it could very well be Bulma, but it's sometimes like it's like the shadows, like when you think something's gone past the door or things like that out the corner of your eye, the peripheral. But yeah, it's a nice way to think of it, actually. That's less scary and more comforting.
Okay, so next story. This is also from r/ghost, and then this was only posted a day ago. Oh,
Ooh.
Elizabeth, my friendly little spirit who follows me between houses.
Okay, nope.
Just instant nope. I've had quite a few experiences with the paranormal, all of which are from once spirit Elizabeth. Elizabeth first made herself known to me about 3 or 4 years ago. I had always felt a presence in our basement, but had never heard or seen anything out of the ordinary. She decided to make herself known by turning on my brother's electric razor, which required you to push it and twist at the same time to turn it on. My brother and I were in separate rooms with the bathroom between us. Both of us witnessed this. The second time she made herself known was in my apartment. I had a doggy doorbell for my puppy that you had to push to make it ring. I had my back to it and I had four friends in the living room connected to the room the bell and I were in. The bell went off, so I turned around and my puppy comes running out of a completely different room. My friends said they watched the bell push inwards and ring all on its own. That night, we decided to use a spirit box, which my friend brought with her and had never used. This is how we learned her name was Elizabeth. I gave her permission to stay as long as she didn't harm me, those around me, my pets, or my property. There were a few other times in the apartment, like when she decided she wanted to buy chips and slowly moved them off the table in front of me, just sneaking the chips away. They're mine, thank you, yummy. Or when she wanted to watch a YouTube video, I had paused so that I could shower, which scared the shit out of me because when I suddenly unpaused whilst I was in the said shower,
Rude, Elizabeth. That's so rude.
most recently, she knocked over a few things, mostly small crystals or papers. She also frequently unpauses videos that I pause. I think she enjoys watching my YouTube with me. Anyone else have any silly little spirit they hang out with? And as I said, this was only posted the day ago, so there's some comments, but
I have mixed feelings about this. There's a guy that I watch on TikTok and his name's Leighton, and there's this guy from Manchester, and he found a coin and he got a ghost, and then he started calling him Winston, right? And he agreed to let him stay, as long as this, and they got on, and he bought him toys and balloons and bubbles and stuff, and he'd feed into this energy, and then the videos that he's showing now, things have got 10 times worse. So, I mean, I don't know if this guy is telling the truth. He does say that all he ever does is press record and then he just captures what happens. Part of me wants to believe, part of me is a little bit skeptical, but I feel like sometimes entities can start off like kind of playful, kind of little things. And because of how scared I am, I would just automatically tell them to leave, I think. I don't think I'd be inviting them in to stay in my personal space and cohabit. Because there is potential that they can like feed off your energy. Like the more attention you give them, the more energy you're giving them. And I don't know necessarily whether that could be a good thing or a bad thing. So yeah, I mean, I don't want to put anything on anyone or scare anyone, But I just think you've got to be so careful, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. Like it's like a human, right? Like a human can be nice to you to start with and like love
Yeah.
bomb you, and then all of a sudden shit goes down. You know,
Yeah.
but they were once human too. There's no reason to treat them any different.
That's true. Potential for demonic entities. Let's just say that. Just be careful with your energy. Just be careful with your space. And if you feel like it's kind of crossing the line, maybe tell it to stop, maybe tell it no, and maybe ask it to leave if it gets a little bit too much. But if you're okay, absolutely, if you're okay cohabiting and like letting it do like little silly things like stealing your chips and pausing your YouTube videos, and that's great.
That's
Could
me
not
as
be
a ghost.
me, could not be me, but that is great for you.
That's me as a ghost. So
Yeah, that could be me as a ghost, but that not I could not be I couldn't yeah, I don't think I could have a spirit friend. I really don't. I'm too much of a wuss. Okay, so that is it for this week's video. We hope you enjoyed. If you have any spooky, scary ghost stories and you don't mind sharing with us, leave them in the comments, send us an email, find us on social media. We would love to hear from you. So don't forget to subscribe if you want to hear more like this, and we will see you all soon. Bye, guys.
bye.